Hey guys, Entertainment Tonight just called me and they wanted to talk about the Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie divorce getting finalized. And so I just got done talking with them about it and I wanted to give you guys a couple of tips as well. And this was really around the topic of Angelina Jolie and the kids not wanting to have Brad have any part of seeing the kids or a part of their lives. In fact, that was like the biggest thing that they fought about all this time. Even though Brad Pitt won the battle, he lost the war on custody of the kids. He won the battle by doing like 2 years of supervised possession of the kids, and he got sober, and then a private judge ruled that he could have 50-50 custody of the kids. But then Angelina Jolie and her legal team swooped in and had that judge disqualified based on like a technicality and a relationship with Brad Pitt's lawyers. And ultimately Brad didn't like follow up and get another judge to make a ruling that he was able to see the kids. So what does this mean for us, or how can we even incorporate this into any of our cases? Number one, I want to tell you that as a divorce lawyer talking to thousands of people over my 18 years of doing this, it is really common for people to call me up and say, my husband's a jerk, my husband is so terrible, or my wife's an alcoholic, and I never ever want her to see the kids again. Sometimes people say, I want him to sign over his rights, or I want her to sign over her rights as a parent. And I just want to level set with you, that is highly unusual and hardly ever happens. The only way you're really ever going to get someone to sign over their rights is if they volunteer to do that, if they want to do that, if they agree to do that. So really it's unusual for us to see a parent like Brad not have as much contact with his kids when he wants that contact. I'm not saying that you're going to have a deadbeat dad out there or a deadbeat mom who just walks away from the kids, and that's really, really sad. But on the other hand, when you do have a parent that's completely absent, what most people don't realize is that that means that you get to make every single decision yourself. There are so many people in divorce who wish that they didn't have to consult with the other side or could just do whatever they want for the kids and not have to really get the permission of the other parent. So even though it's hard sometimes, it's really hard, I know it is, when you're doing everything yourself, you at least get to have the benefit of not having to consult with somebody else. And then on the other side of that coin, if you do have another parent that you wished weren't involved in the kid's life but is, I want to just tell you that it's really unusual for a parent to not rehabilitate themselves or to not show a court that they're sorry for something, that their behavior has changed, and they still want access to that child. What I want you guys to know is that the courts typically favor someone learning lessons from their past mistakes. What does that mean? Just because your spouse is on drugs now doesn't mean that they're going to never, ever, ever have a relationship with your kids. That might be so scary to hear, but I want you to hear this from me, and I want you to look into this. Why is that? How could that be? Well, a court's going to want to allow someone to rehabilitate themselves, to get sober, to go to rehab, to show and prove demonstrably that they are no longer on drugs and still want to be a part of your child's life. That doesn't mean they're going to just come back and have unfettered access to your child. It's usually stair-stepped. If someone's got a drug problem, they're going to have to prove that they are sober in order to have access to your child. But I want you guys to start realizing that just determining that someone can be written out of a child's life when that child is genetically 50% that other person, that's not something a court is typically going to support. So talk to your lawyer, temper your expectations, and understand that if you want to write someone out of your kid's life, it's usually really hard if that person wants to be a part. So Brad Pitt has been able to not have a relationship with his kids, and that is highly, highly, highly unusual. So don't start thinking that that's something that you can ask for or demand from your spouse when you're going through a divorce without getting a lot of pushback from both the court and probably also your attorney. They don't want you to spend a lot of money on something you're going to ultimately lose. I'm not saying you can't put safeguards in place. I'm not saying you can't have supervised visitation. But if you have a parent that wants to have a relationship and they do the work to try to gain that trust back, it's really hard to keep them from having that relationship. I hope that helps.